Hey, Uncle Jamie here with an unsolicited opinion. So, I'm looking at all this controversy around Joe Rogan, and I have to ask, what's the point? I mean, I don't know why these artists don't want to be on Spotify anymore if it's not about the pay structure. I mean, if it's about the pay structure, I certainly get that. But if it's about one podcaster having somebody on that they don't like, I don't get that. I mean, after all, if we're talking about misinformation, um, how many times have we been not fooled, but how many times because the science is following something that's new and unexpected, have we had to change our minds about what to expect? Uh, just for example, a year ago, the lab leak theory would have gotten you deplatformed, and it turns out that the lab leak theory becomes more and more likely as we get more information about the COVID virus. The That cloth masks aren't very effective. Eh, that's something we know now too. That you can get the vaccine and still contract and pass on COVID is something that we now know to be true, which uh, 6 months ago would have gotten you in trouble if you had said that. Um, so when it comes to misinformation, what are people talking about? Also, Joe Rogan, before the Spotify deal, had the number one podcast in the world. I'm guessing that if he got deplatformed from Spotify, he would still have the number one podcast in the world. And the deal he struck with Spotify to make it an exclusive host for his podcast, it's rumored that he got paid $100 million for that. And knowing what I know about Spotify's structure for paying their artists, my guess is if they paid Joe Rogan $100 million for that same time period, they're making at least 10 or 15 times that. So, they're not gonna take him off the platform if he's bringing in that kind of revenue. And besides, what are we having problems with? A few moments out of a 4-hour conversation, and he's got, I don't know, 1,000, 1,700, something like that, different episodes on his podcast. And each one of these episodes, he talks to these people at least an hour, sometimes as much as 4 hours. And the topics go from MMA, fighting, comedy, not very much politics, but anybody he basically finds interesting, he talks to them. And that's what the content is. I don't listen to most of the podcast. If he has a guest on that I find interesting, I'll listen to them. But other than that, I don't much listen to it. So that he has somebody on that is spreading what people believe is misinformation, okay. But on the other hand, I don't rely on the Joe Rogan podcast to give me actionable information. If some people do, well, that's on them to not do their own research. When I get information like that from a meme or from a podcast, that's like where I start with my research. I ask, is this so? And then see what I can find. And I don't use a podcast or a meme to provide me with actionable information. But I would like to make a couple of comments about the Joe Rogan podcast and his guests and this concerted effort to try to throw shade on him in his podcast right now. What I do know is that he gets a lot of wacky people on there, but almost nobody from the establishment shows up on his show. Why? Because they're stuck with the MSM, the mainstream media. And it seems like the mainstream media is trying to shut out all kinds of alternate sources like, oh, I don't know, The Hill, The Rational National, the Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar, etc., etc. I've Another thing I've noticed is that when he presents like a conservative, right-wing, hard-right wackadoo on there, the conservative media praises him and the liberal media excoriates them. When he has somebody liberal on, crickets. I can't imagine why that would be. I mean, libs don't show up. Establishment conservatives don't show up. So he has conversations with whomever he has conversations with. I mean, Bernie Sanders went on his show. Tulsi Gabbard went on his show. Andrew Yang went on his show. Neil deGrasse Tyson went on his show. I listened to those podcasts and I thought they were pretty good and pretty informative because he just basically lets his guests speak. And he kind of like chimes in here and there, but he lets his guests speak. So you get to hear what they think. And I'm sure it's the same thing with this Dr. Montgomery, who everybody's angry about. I didn't see the podcast myself, so I have no opinion on it. My opinion is really about the protest, about people canceling their subscriptions, about people, about artists taking their material and content off the platform. I'm just curious what you want to accomplish. I don't see him going away, and I don't see it being a bad business decision for Spotify to keep him on. Maybe throw a disclaimer on when he talks about controversial subjects so that people are less likely to use it as actionable information, which is what I'm not likely to do in the first place, and I don't know why you would. But that's just me. That's just one guy's opinion. And you can do with whatever you like. Have a great night.